Come ci siamo già detti più volte,
As we have already
spesso la parte
said
più
each
facile da
other many
capire.
times, often the easiest part is to understand.
E parlavo con qualcuno che era in un momento di
And I was
difficoltà,
talking with
comunque
someone that
lontano
was
da
in a
qui,
moment of
che
difficulty,
mi
very
diceva,
far from here,
credo
and he
di
was
avere
telling me,
qualche problema
I
di
believe I
tipo
have some
bipolare, che
problem, maybe
se
I'm bipolar or
capisco tutto
whatever.
poi
I
faccio il
understand
contrario.
everything and then I do the opposite.
Sento certe volte che sono più esseri dentro di me,
I
perché
feel
c'è una
that there are
parte
more
di me che
beings
dice
inside of
sì,
me
lo
because there
so,
is like a
è
part of me
così,
that
invece c'è
says
un'altra
yes, I
parte che
know, and
invece
then
nel
another
momento
one,
fa il
then in the
contrario,
moment does the
capendo
complete
invece che
opposite,
non doveva
knowing
farlo.
that you
Non so
shouldn't
se è
have
mai
done that.
capitato
I
a
don't know if it
qualcuno del
has ever
genere.
happened to you, something like that.
Io ho avuto un
Me,
periodo
I
della mia
had a
vita,
period of my life.
fortuna poco,
Actually,
perché ormai
fortunately,
sono
it was quite
impegnato
short,
in
like a
questa
few
cosa,
months, maybe like
più o meno
four,
qualche
6 months,
mese,
just a few
in
months,
cui avevo
where
questa cosa
I
che
had this thing that
pensavo una
I
cosa
was thinking
e
something, and then
desideravo la
I was
forza dell'attrazione
wishing,
portava verso
like the
qualcos'altro.
force of the attraction was
E a me
bringing
è stato
somewhere
molto
else. And to
importante
me, it was very important
perché fino a quel
because
momento
until that
io non ero
moment,
mai avuto
I
questo
never
tipo di
had
situazione, ho
this
sempre
kind of
potuto avere
situation. I
una
was
coerenza
always
molto
able to have
forte
a
fra quello
very
che
strong
penso e quello che
coherence
sento e quello
between
che
what I
faccio.
think, what I feel, and what I do.
E a un certo punto questa coerenza è venuta a
And
mancare.
then at a certain point,
E
this
ti giuro,
coherence
per me è stato molto
was
importante
not there.
per
And
vedere
this was very
finalmente
important for
come
me to
funzionava,
see
per
um,
sentire questo.
how does it
Ed
work, to
effettivamente è
feel
una cosa
this. And
molto
actually,
comune
it's
e
something that
molto
is very
normale
common
fra
and very
tutti noi.
normal among all of us.
Che una cosa è il capire, il
That
sapere.
something is to
Un'altra
understand,
cosa è
to
il
know,
essere,
and
il sentire.
another thing is to be and to feel.
Ieri, per esempio, era luna
Yesterday,
piena, no?
for example, it was
E
full
c'è
moon,
questo ogni tanto c'è chi dice, luna
and
piena, stai più
there is like
attento,
who
è
says,
pericoloso, le
there is
emozioni
full
della
moon.
luna
Wow,
piena sono molto
careful.
nascoste,
Oh no,
tutte queste
the
cose qua,
emotions are
no?
very strong.
Eh,
And
in realtà nella mia conoscenza quello
actually,
che avviene è
in my
che
knowledge, what
nei
happens
giorni di
is
luna
that
piena
during the
le
days of full
emozioni
moon,
in sé sono più
emotions,
forti,
yes, they are
sono
stronger,
più
they
manifestate.
are more
Ci sono
manifest.
anche degli studi
There are also some
che hanno visto che
studies
nei giorni di luna
that where
piena
you can
gli
see
indici
that
passionali
in the
aumentano.
days of full moon,
Oltre che
the
nascere
crimes related to passion
inaspettati. Io
are
ho
higher.
un
Also,
amico che è ginecologo, lui dice che i
the
turni di notte in luna piena dovrebbe fare il
newborns,
suo medico. Questo è in Brasile, perché ha detto che c'è molto
like
più
when he
lavoro
says,
e c'è
like this
molta
friend
meno
that says that
attenzione.
works in the hospital that
Basta pensare al
doesn't
fatto
want to
che
work in the
noi
days
siamo
of full
fatti a
moon
quanto
because there
per
are
cento d'acqua?
new a lot of newborns in
80,
those
c'è chi
days.
dice 80, chi dice 70, poco
And
importa in
the
questo
point is
caso.
that we are made
La
of a
luna
high
ha un effetto
percentage of
sull'acqua,
water,
no?
like 70, 80%,
Basta
depending
vedere l'oceano, che
on the
capisce un
person.
minimo di
And
pianeta e
so,
sa che il
does the
geologo
moon have an
ha
effect
tagliato un
on
ghiaccio
water?
piuttosto che
Yes, okay, who also
influenzato dalla
understands
luna,
a bit
anche
about
noi ci sarà
plants knows
qualcosa.
that, so we must have
E quindi
something
anche lì c'è una relazione con la
similar.
parte
And
emotiva, non
so
è che
there
full
also there
moon
is a
è pericoloso.
relation with
È
emotions.
pericoloso
It's not
quando
that the
uno
full
non ha
moon
controllo
day
delle
is
proprie
dangerous. It's
emozioni, a
dangerous when
differenza
one
di
doesn't
essere
have
interpretato il
control on
desiderio
his or
dalla
her own
rabbia,
emotions.
dall'odio,
So
dall'avversione, e
one
quindi
is taken
succede
more
che di
easily
solito
by
per
anger, by
quello che mi è
aversion,
noto,
and things
lì
like
le
that.
emozioni diventano più
And
forti,
so
la possibilità che uno perda
maybe
il controllo è
it's
maggiore.
easier to lose
E
control
quindi
in
in
those
quei
days.
giorni è meglio stare a
So
pregare
in
dal
those
mattino
five
alla
days,
sera,
maybe
fai
it's
tanta
better to just
meditazione,
sit and
dai,
pray
fai delle
from
cose positive
dawn to
in modo da
dusk, to
assicurare
do
di
positive
cercare di
things, so that one
stimolare
is
le
sure
emozioni più
that
positive
you
in quei giorni.
stimulate more the positive
Però
emotions
quello che
in those
accade è
days.
che
But what
esiste
happens
questa
is that there
discrepanza
is this
tra quello che
discrepancy
noi
between
sappiamo e
what
quello che noi
we
siamo,
know and what we are,
quelle che sono le emozioni che noi
what are
sentiamo.
the emotions that we feel.
E naturalmente
And
noi abbiamo una
naturally,
parte più
we
logica,
have the more
abbiamo una
logical
parte più
part, the
emotiva,
more emotional part.
no? Certe volte viene fatta la differenza fra
Sometimes
l'altro
the
maschile e
distinction is
femminile,
made between the
possiamo
male
chiamare
and
tanti nomi
female, we can call
diversi.
it in many different
Fatto sta che
ways, but the
abbiamo una
point is
parte
that
più
we have
razionale,
a more
quella che
rational
dice ho
part,
capito,
the
so,
one that says,
e
I
la parte più
understood, I
emotiva.
know,
Questo
and the
non
more
riguarda
emotional
l'uomo,
part. This
riguarda
is not
chiunque.
about male or female, it's about everyone.
Più forte la discrepanza, la
And
distanza
the
fra queste
stronger the
due,
discrepancy, the distance
sommata alla
between
distanza
these
delle
two,
nostre
sum to
azioni,
the distance from
vengono ad
our
agire,
actions,
quindi
because we
interagiamo
act,
fisicamente
so
o
we interact
verbalmente
physically,
anche con i
verbally, and also
pensieri che
with our
rimangono lì
thoughts that stay there
a rimuginare,
to
eccetera, possono essere fatti
go
o
around.
secondo quello che
It
penso o
can be
secondo
done
quello che sento.
according to either what I
Queste sono
think
le
or
due
what I
forze
feel, and these
principali.
are the two main
E
forces.
quando
And when there is a difference and a distance between what I think and what I feel and what I do, the inner dialogue becomes almost endless. It increases a lot. The smaller is the distance and the greater is the harmony between what I think and what I do and what I feel, the more one can have inner silence, balance, calmness, and so on. My personal experience is that when there is an increase between what I think and what I feel, this creates inner dialogue. And when what I do doesn't match with what I think or with what I feel, there is something inside, like a force, like as if one was forced in like a dress that is too tight until it explodes. I don't know if it has ever happened to you. When, for example, one is forced for example, rules to do something or not to do something that it's not coherent with what one feels or with what one thinks, and it's even worse when it's against both. And there, this creates a lot of difficulty. So one should try to have coherence, harmony between what I think and what I feel and what I do. What I believe is that sometimes it's a bit like when two people that don't really like each other so much have to live with each other. They have to share a space, like in the working context or family context, whatever. It's kind of like saying, okay, I'd rather not have to share this space with you, but I don't have much choice. I'm here, you're there, and as long as we are here, let's try to make it work at the best. This is one first level. And what is the basis for this to work at the best? Also, when we talk about like between one person and the other, what is there at the basis? Respect. And respect, what is it made of? I acknowledge your existence. You're there. And your existence is not necessarily less important than mine, or the other way around. But you're there, and so I see you. I see that you have your needs, your limits, and I have mine. And so, when we see each other, then this means that we have mutual respect. Maybe we don't agree with each other, we don't think in the same way, but I see you and you see me. And so I adapt to you, and you adapt to me, and we manage to find our appropriate spaces and so on, because the more we wrestle, then we will know where we will end up. So if I try to impose on you my way of thinking and doing, what happens is that you will try to impose yours on me, and then it will be like the law of the strongest until the one that pretended of just accepting everything just explodes. We know this dynamic, but also if we don't agree, but there is respect, then there is basis to find a mutual meeting point, and also to build like a friendship. But at the basis, one needs respect, and this is in every kind of relationship. And what I believe and what I see is that the deepest respect is not so obvious, it's not so easy. We have the tendency of wanting to impose the I and the mine. My way of thinking, my wishes, what I want. It's as if this was the number one priority. And it's as if not doing what I believe that it's right, what I want, it's as if it was an act of violence towards me. So But I'm there, yes, and I allow myself to see, recognize my needs, my limits, and so on, but I'm not alone, and you're also there. And so I also respect your needs, your wishes, your limits, your difficulties. There is me, there is you, and we will find meeting points. Sometimes we will do it another way, sometimes in some other way. And like this, bit by bit, we will find a balance, a meeting point. Because also there is another very interesting aspect, which is if I have to do something together with you, and I don't feel that I am seen and respected, I will have a lot of a harder time to accept that it if it's different from what I want, because I will try to pull my presence out to prove the fact that I have the right to exist, and so I will want my will to be respected. But if I feel respected, if I feel seen, then I will not even try to. I relax more naturally. A space is created so that also the other is welcomed. It's also about our physical relational space. If I feel respected, which means that the limits that I set are not crossed, of my needs, of my own limitations, and so on. There are people that don't like to be touched. There are other people. Also today I heard of someone that when you touch them, you have to touch them 3 times, otherwise they feel sick. Yeah, everyone has his own thing. So if you just do that, that person has the anxiety, so you have to do it like 3 times. What does this mean? That if I know you and I know that you have this need, then I will not do it just once, because I respect your need. And if I know that you're a person that likes silence, that doesn't like to chat a lot, and we are together, I will try to respect that. I don't impose. In other words, each one of us has its own boundaries, limitations. When I feel that the other respects my limits, naturally, what will I do? I relax. I am less rigid. And so naturally, also, I allow sometimes to cross in one way or another, because I know that it's something in my freedom. But if I feel that there is not that respect, other than not crossing that boundary, I will even put another barrier because I'm afraid. So here, something is our relationship with other people, and respect is one of the most important things. And this, I think, it's in all fields. And I repeat, the respect is about my capacity of seeing you, and so to recognize that you have your needs, that you have your limits, and so on. And so I don't impose on you how you should be, what you should do, or impose that my needs, my wishes, and so on are more important than your needs, your limitations, your wishes. And here there is another important point, and I close the parenthesis quickly. If I respect myself, then that means that I acknowledge and I see my needs, my wishes, and my own limitations. And this is fundamental also, because I recognize what are my needs, my wishes, my limits, mostly my needs and wishes, but there are also the wishes, desires. And I know that in the relationship with the others, there is a limit that I need to set, because if I don't set that, then it seems selfish. The other maybe wants to talk for 4 hours, me after 3 or 4 minutes I can't stand it anymore. Maybe sometimes, okay, 1 hour, okay, it's okay. But it comes a time when, okay, in order for us to be in harmony, we need to respect each other's limits. So my limit is 4 minutes. Maybe we can get to 6 minutes, okay. But we will not get much further, even, but we're like 4 hours, yeah, but how do you say it in Italian? So Okay, what you want, but here it doesn't work, so I shouldn't feel guilty because I'm setting some limits that don't match your desires, as if I was mean that I don't allow you to get what you want. I don't know if this is clear. But actually, we should respect our own limits without. I don't have anything against you that you want to talk a lot, but I have my limits. There are people to which like physical contact is annoying. There are some people that need more silence. For example, my mother is a person that going to the restaurant with her, it's complicated because when there is a lot of noise, she's not well at all. So you need to find silent places because like if you put like music and people talking, like she really feels bad because she has a lot of sensibility with sound. And one that doesn't have that sensibility maybe says, ah, you're so exaggerated. But why? Because we are different, so I should see that you have that limit and I respect it. But I should also respect mine, and there is nothing wrong with that. This is something for us that it's important, and so also to be able to set these limits. There is sometimes it's difficult, but it's important to set that. And I repeat once again, the basis of our relationships is respect. The same thing. Now let's take this, that actually, okay, we see this that anyway it's useful in everyday life, but it's more about the example. The meaning, the analogy is related to what? The relationship that it's there between what I think and what I feel. We will have rarely big coherence between what we think, what we feel, and what we do. I don't know. Think about something that you like to eat, but that you know that it's harmful. Can you find something? You don't need much. And so there is an incoherence, and that direct incoherence that is, I want it, but I don't want it. So there is a part of me, there is a logical part that says, I don't want it, I shouldn't do it, and there is the part of attraction, the part of desire that says, I want it. And if we go and see, we have really a lot of incoherences, especially between what I think and what I want, what are my wishes, my feelings, that are results of my experiences, and what are my thoughts, that are results of my knowledge, what has been told to me, what I have acquired as an information. They don't necessarily go together. So we have this more logical part and this more emotional part. And so to find some harmony, they need first of all to respect each other. So that means that the emotional part should respect the logical part and say, okay, you're there, you have your needs, your limits, and so on, and I respect that. And the logical part should also look at the emotional part and say, okay, you're there, I see you, I respect you, I recognize your needs, your limitations, and so on. And here we need a lot of sincerity, because there are also some thresholds. We have some wishes that are not good for us, and so we should be able to set some limits. But what we need is first of all to be able to listen to ourselves. When my need is listened to and seen, then it actually doesn't need to fulfill itself, obtain the object. But if I pretend that it's not there, then it will find all possible ways to manifest itself. I don't know if this is clear. So I want that thing? Yes, I want it. Ah, how beautiful it will be. But actually it's so bad for me. And it's not possible, there are not the resources, the means, and so on. But and so what? Yes, you want it, yes, you imagine it, you do something, but you can't have it. But from the point that wish is welcomed with no judgment by the reason, But you say, okay, there are no possibilities, not that I am repressing that. Yes, it's there, yes, I see you, but the conditions are not there, and that already helps to decrease the strength. Just like there are some times that on the side of the feelings, you look towards the reason and it's like, yes, I know that you have understood like that and so on, but I also need to exist. And sometimes we need to allow ourselves to just follow our feelings. Sometimes it's very important. Okay, we have some good feelings that are very deep, and even if in our logic, within our logic, they don't make any sense, you just need to do it. And it's beautiful to be able to do that. Of course, not getting into context where there are some negative consequences. That's the part where the reason should be careful for. It's not like, how much I would like that thing, and the reason says, but you don't have money. And so then one ends up stealing it. Because the desire is strong, you take it with force. I get into the shop, I kill the cashier, and I take that thing, and so on. There are some limits that need to be respected. So there is a moment where first you have the green flag, and then the yellow, and then the red flag, and the reason says, no, stop it, there is like a limit that you should respect. And the same in the relationship with one person with the other. I may have some attraction towards you, and I can manifest this, but there are some rules of living together that need to be respected. And here, reason needs to say, stop it, because there is a limit that you need to respect. Otherwise, it has the opposite effect. And so somehow we should see, we should acknowledge these two parts. And so also the emotion should be able to say, look, just let me live. Recognize that there is also the feelings, because if I live only with the logical part, then it becomes sterile. And then that emotion finds a way to go out somewhere else. And so it's important to see that. And it's interesting that when reason allows emotion to exist and welcomes that emotion with no judgment, also the emotion normally is not like something so specific, whether it's like some attraction or aversion or a particular love or sadness. There are many kinds of emotions that sometimes they need to have a space where they can exist, not necessarily in that context, in that way. But when we try to not allow that and we repress it, then we'll find some other way to manifest itself. And so, what I feel needs to be seen, what I think needs to be seen, and the two things need to go together. If I don't allow this dialogue, one of the things that we will end up doing, and that is very dangerous, is that who talks strongest is what we feel, not what we think. Really, the boss are the feelings. When this dialogue doesn't happen in a sane way between the two, where the function of both of them are respected and you work in a team, when this doesn't happen, our tendency is to create some narratives to justify feelings. And we can create some illogical logics to justify the most absurd things. That also exists. But me, sometimes I see some things that I say, whoa, it's really crazy how coherence lacks. Where is it? And one says, no, but it's logic. Yes, from the point A to point A dot 1, that little part is logic, but if you put it in the bigger picture, it makes no sense. And what we do is that when we don't create that dialogue, the emotions at some point, mostly attraction and aversion, will create some narratives to justify their existence and their consequent actions. And we will find people with behaviors that are destructive, that they have a whole narrative to justify themselves. And so we should be careful in our own to not let this happen. And for this, it's important to let this dialogue happen, that there is like some teamwork here. And this, our feelings need to be seen, needs to be listened to. I remember that every time that I touch these arguments, I remember of that painting that is behind of you, the Buddha in front, standing with the hand like this. The original is in Albagnano, once used to be in this wall behind me, that is made by our dear friend Duccio, and he painted that. That is a reproduction, but the original was really painted here in this Gompa, so many years ago. He was there painting, and at the time there was a lady that was living here at the center. She had her own apartment, but Gangchen was living on the second floor. And she was a particular person, very beautiful on some aspects, very difficult on some others. She didn't want to be alone. She didn't have many people other than those of the center, so she would never go to her apartment. And so basically she was 24 hours a day here or in Lama Gangchen's place. Many funny stories about her. And also the nice thing here that there is always gratitude towards her. She was a musician. She was called Teresa. Also in the self-feeling, when you have the mantra of the guru, who adapted this mantra to the melody was Teresa. And for who is a bit older than me, will maybe remember the beginning of the Italian TV. There was like an interval with some harp playing, and she was playing the harp. So she was Teresa Torricchio. She died a few years ago. She was a person with a purity of spirit and morality that was very strong. She was also kleptomaniac, but also she had many other difficulties. In the fact that, for example, she would go into conversation looping. She wouldn't sleep at night. Twice she stopped the thieves at the Kunpen because she wouldn't sleep at night. So once she was walking during the night and one thief came in, and in the dark she pointed the finger in his back, and she was like, "Who's there?" And the thief ran away. Another time someone was trying to break through the door, and from the balcony she heard, and she said, "Sorry, the opening hours are from 10 to 1." And this person was scared and then also ran away. But anyway, Duccio was here painting, and Teresa came to him, and as he was painting, and she started talking about various arguments. She was kind of looping into this conversation. One of the favorite conversations was about dishwasher, like looping for hours, and he wanted to work. At a certain point he develops this technique where he says, "Okay, I don't say anything. I pretend that she's not there. I know that it's not nice, but whatever I answer, then I can't stop the conversation." So it's just there painting. She would come, she would say whatever she wanted to say, she would pretend that she wasn't there. After 1 or 2 days, that worked. She passed by, she looked at him, didn't say anything. She had like 2 days of silence. Then after 2 days, Teresa comes to Duccio and says, sorry, I need to excuse myself with you, because it's not that you didn't talk to me because you are mean or something, but because you're working, and so I need to respect your silence during your work, and so I was always talking to you. And he said, yes, Teresa, you're right. And then she starts again with the dishwasher, and she started again the conversation and never stopped. And so what happens is that when we have an inner need, mostly on an emotional level, like some pain, some desire, something, and we don't allow that to be manifested and to exist, it will find the way to show itself. And the more we try to suppress that, the more we'll try to find the strangest ways and hidden ways, like also doing some strange things sometimes, bizarre. And when we don't even allow that, then it will manifest in the body. And so, for this, it's important for us to allow, by all means, to this to exist, to be seen, what we feel, not without getting into a process of judgment and opposition. I recognize it, and then there is a dialogue, we reason. Okay, does it make sense? Doesn't make sense? Does it bring to something good? Is it harmful? Does it respect limits of relationships and of what is possible or not? Because otherwise it ends in a bad way. That it's not like the I want doesn't mean a lot by itself. And so to allow this dialogue. One of the important things in the process of respect is to try as much as possible to see the other with no judgment, without trying to impose our own idealized image of what the other should be or should do. Difficult. But it makes the whole difference. If I see you and I have my own idea of what it would be good for you, and so I have my own idealized image of you. It would be better if you stop doing this, even if it would be like that, and so on. But I don't have the pretense that you should already be that. Is the difference clear? One thing is the fact that I say, look, it would be better if you didn't eat so much sugar. You shouldn't eat so much sugar. And I have the pretension that from today you should stop eating so much sugar, without taking into consideration the fact that you have a strong addiction and so on. Another thing is, if I say, look, it would be good for you if you didn't eat so much sugar, I help you in the process to get there. These are two very different things. One thing it would be, it would be better if you didn't have these aggressive reactions. Another would be if I have the pretense that from now you shouldn't have them. This doesn't work, and the same is true also about ourselves. So it's good to set some goals of what I would like to be. And another thing is having the pretension and to put on myself that I should already be there. It would be better if I didn't get angry anymore. Yes, okay, we will do the best that we can. We will take a deep process to develop more patience and so on. Something else is when I get angry with myself because I get angry. Because since I've understood that I shouldn't get angry, then absolutely I shouldn't get angry anymore. And so let's try to create this dialogue between what we feel, what we do, what we think. I also leave to each one of you your own process of observation, reflection, to see, to recognize that we have these two aspects, that at a certain point they melt together, mix together and become one thing. But at the beginning, when we begin to observe, it's important that one respects the existence of the other and that they are able to see each other. And then the action that we take will be more coherent, because it will be an action that will match both what I feel and what I think. Once that we have this is one important aspect. What happens is that in our incoherencies we will find some feelings of things that we want, but we don't know how to get them or how to stop them. And reason will also see some feelings that they would like that could be different, but that we are not able to change. And here there is the process where I see, okay, that I desire this, but I don't know how to obtain it, that it's possible. Within what parameters I can put energy into that, because otherwise it becomes like, okay, I really want that, yes, I can kill, I can steal, and so on. So there are some basic rules that are fundamental for life, and this is the part of the reason that sets some boundaries. Okay, it says don't kill, don't steal, don't take what is not yours, don't lie, because otherwise lies hurt ourselves, first of all. So the more we lie, the more actually we will end up believing in our own lies, and so we will create a parallel reality, and eventually we hurt ourselves. So to not lie, and then don't have a sexual misconduct, which is, okay, because to not steal and kill, they are quite easy to understand. The sexual misconduct is about there are different ways to interpret it. My interpretation, how I live it, there are two levels. The more superficial one is where there is a commitment between two people. So that needs to be respected. In other words, if you have a sexual misconduct, in that case is a betrayal, or also, but there is a commitment from both people, and so to respect that commitment is fundamental, because it takes away a lot of problems. Someone has already told me, yes, Lama, but you know, the other person doesn't even know it. What harm am I doing? If there is no harm, then tell him. And here there is one fundamental point, and I open and close a parenthesis. When there is a commitment, like a vow, that commitment creates something that is material, but that can't be perceived by the senses. So there is like a subtle form, but there is something material, physical. And when we take a vow, when we take a commitment, something is created on a physical plane also. And I don't know if you've ever perceived that at a certain point, if you break a commitment, it's as if like some kind of force is missing then, in whatever context. As long as the commitment is there, then it's like something that sustains. When it's not there, then it collapses. Once a vow, a commitment is broken, then at that point one cannot just say, no, tomorrow I will fix it. No, you need to start from scratch. So what happens is that when between two people there is a commitment, and it's like a commitment of sincerity, of also trust, first of all, and this commitment is broken. This commitment could be like of various kinds, like from the commitment, like a sexual commitment, or also very trivial things, like things that can create some conflicts. For example, I've met some people that see as a sort of betrayal seeing the next episode of the series without the other. we are getting to quite extremes levels, but what happens is that each one has its own way. So when we have like a commitment of something that we like to do together, if you don't respect that commitment, then I partly lose trust. At least you should tell me. In vows, traditionally, if I'm not able to maintain a vow, then at a certain point I can give it back. And if I tell you, look, we have that commitment of doing that thing together, I can't do it for whatever reason, I give the commitment back, and it's nothing like bad. But when it's broken, then something is created as if it was like some kind of rustle in the communication, like a kind of something that split, and that brings another split and so on, and then you don't understand anymore. And so mutual trust is important, is fundamental in a relationship between two people, and the more that commitment brings strong actions, the more it's important to respect it. And so, in the Buddhist vision, there is no vow for the wedding, for example. But when there is a commitment, that there should be like some clarity on what are the commitments. So this is the first level. The second level, and this somehow, I will say it later. The second level is when sexual misconduct is when you have sexual intercourse where you don't take into consideration the needs and the wishes of the other. So that means the other is nothing else than an object, a tool for my own pleasure, and that's it. I don't care if you want it or not, how you live it, what are your wishes. That is not important for me. And sometimes one creates really big narratives to justify that, but when I don't give importance to the needs of the other person and to the desires and so on, this is a sexual misconduct. And this somehow protects when one says, yes, so if I have a commitment, I don't have a formal commitment with anyone, then I can have relationships with everyone. If like the other person betrays the other person, then it's not my problem until at a certain point. But what happens is that when the relationship becomes something that it's very kind of just like a tool to obtain one's own pleasure, and that's it. Then it breaks the second aspect, because the other person is nothing else but a tool for that. And so why are there rules? Because there are some conducts that when reason doesn't set some boundaries, then at a certain point desire does anything possible to obtain what he wants. And if there are not those boundaries, then there are some negative collateral effects. But we say that we are all free to do whatever we want, but we're not free from the consequences. You want to kill, you're free to kill, but you're not free from the consequences that would be for you. We live in a country with some rules, and other than the karmic aspect, there are some rules you want to steal. Let's say that within your conscience, you have the freedom to do that, but there are some heavy consequences, both from an energetical, karmic point of view, and also from a legal point of view. And so, in this, there are these vows, and the other one that it's done, the other boundary that the reason sets, is not to take substances that take away the clarity of mind. Why? The example is made that one takes the vow of not killing, not stealing, not lying, not having a sexual misconduct, at a certain point he or she gets drunk. And in being totally drunk, then that person is hungry. And in the hunger, he kills the animal that he sees. First, there is the stealing, then the killing, then there is the desire, and ends up forcing her to violating another person. Because what does it happen with alcohol or any other substance that takes away the clarity? That part of attraction, aversion, that is there below, that usually some boundaries are set, then one loses control on that, and one ends up doing things that normally wouldn't do. There are some people, for example, there was like a master that I met when I was a child. He was very, very kind. In Brazil, still like a Tibetan Buddhist, but different from Gelugpa, Nimapa, a wonderful master. One of the things that he would do was this tradition that sometimes during the teachings with disciples, he would drink whiskey. He would drink like a small bottle. He would get drunk. And his disciples, that I know many that lived this, he said that he will give wonderful teachings. Because what happens is that when one is drunk, what is manifested? His own beings without the boundaries of reason that say you can do this or cannot do this. If what is beneath that are a beautiful aspect, then they will manifest maybe also in a nicer way without certain limitations. But if what is beneath it's more anger, violence and so on, then it will be manifested without limits, which is the problem for the majority of people. So in his case, it's as if it was taking away some filters, and at that point it will give wonderful teachings. And this didn't happen every day, but there were some moments especially that it was done this way. What happens is that we set some rules, we take some vows, because there are some actions that are harmful. We need to set some boundaries when it's about our goal, our desires, our visions. And this is what reason does, sets some limits to our desires and aversions and so on, other than applying some tools to reach them. And so I want to have a good health. I don't want anymore to have this problem or the other. We understand that we need to behave in this way, we need to do this exercise, we need to eat in that other way, and there is the reason which gives a direction and pushes to obtain the desire that eventually is not to get sick and to have some good health. So the two sides always need to work together. And reason has both the task of giving a direction on how to reach it, and also the task of setting some boundaries.
Dinanzi a questo ci sono delle cose che sono degli strumenti che noi andiamo ad applicare nella nostra vita.
And so about this there are some tools that we use in our lives in the process of getting more clarity in our life, in familiarizing with more with our emotions that are good for us, and decreasing those that are harmful. The part of reason is important, but it's not enough. We need to develop also other tools that help us in this process. One of the most powerful things in all of this is our mind, our own way of thinking, and our mind, both on an emotional level and also on a logical level. On both levels, it works on the basis of habit. The more I repeat something, the easier it becomes. If it's a concept that the more I repeat it, the more it gets into my mind. And if it's like an emotion, the more I live that emotion, then I feel it, the strongest it gets. It's not that I feel anger and so I manifest a lot of anger and then it kind of drains out. No, there is the moment where I feel like the need of exploding. I feel where I can throw that energy, and then after that it becomes easier and easier to want to explode, and then it becomes a habit. And so our mind has this capacity of familiarizing, and one of the things that we should do is to use this totally to our favor. And so last week, for example, we have seen the power of mantra, the importance of reciting a verse or a mantra that helps us to connect with what we want. So it's a process that is coherent with reason, but that doesn't follow the path of reason. And this is interesting, because when we are only talking to ourselves on the level of reason, then it's very limited. When we connect in a non-logical way with what we want to be, with a feeling that we want to cultivate, and we manage to generate that feeling and to remain in that, that has a power of transformation that is much greater. And so, other than protecting mind from other thoughts, also the mantra. So it's important to do mantras. Another important tool that goes together with this that I want to look into today is visualization. There is a really huge difference between understanding and experiencing. When we experience something, that remains in ourselves much more marked rather than when we understand simply, both in the good way and the bad way. Something, if I only watch a movie that talks about violence, shows some violence, another thing is whether I experience it on my skin. It changes completely. Or if I put myself in a certain situation and I really imagine it, it changes. What happens is that when we imagine something, to our brain, to our mind, it's almost like as if we were living that by all means. So I imagine like something about love, affection. My body chemically reacts as if I was in that situation. I imagine like a threat. My body reacts with some stress, as if I was in front of the threat, and so on. And so, when we imagine, and also with the visualization, what we are doing is we are creating some experience. So through the process of visualization, we are allowing ourselves to induce ourselves to some experiences that we want. Of course, using this to our own favor. So what are the characteristics that I want to develop? For example, there are 4 fundamental characteristics, to which there is one visualization that helps us to develop 4 of them, all 4 of them. I think I mentioned about this last time. Sometimes I get confused about what I explain in a place or another. The 4 fundamental characteristics are love, compassion, equanimity, and the capacity of rejoicing. That is, being happy, feeling happy for the happiness and the virtue of the others. So here, rather than talking about these qualities, there is a visualization that you can do. It can also be combined with mantras. So I imagine the other people, and we should try to begin from what are called the 5 categories, because otherwise the risk is to become like I love everyone, but apart from those people. So we should have like these 5 categories to start with. So there are the family, the people whom we live with,
ossia amici,
that is
famiglia, amici quelli
friends,
che sono per dire molto vicini a noi, ma
those
non hanno un
those that
vincolo
are
di
very
sangue,
very close to us
ok?
but are not
Nella
like
nostra famiglia
related
politica, padre, madre, fratelli, eccetera.
as a
Poi
family.
ci sono gli amici, compagni, eccetera. Persone con cui conviviamo al
People,
lavoro,
okay, so there are
facciamo
family,
tutti dentro nella
friends,
nostra
then people
quotidianità.
whom we live
E
with,
poi ci sono
people
le altre due
like also
categorie che sono
co-workers
quelli
and things like
a
that.
cui abbiamo
And then there are
un'avversione
those
e
towards
abbiamo una
which you have
paura.
an aversion and we have a
Quindi per
reason
esempio a cui
for
ho
that.
fatto del bene
So
e
for
poi ho ricevuto del
example,
male,
a person towards which
persone
I've
che
done
io ho
something
una
good and in
certa
turn I receive
avversione e
something,
credo di
some
aver
harm.
ragione.
And then the fifth
E l'altro
is
sono quelli a cui ho avversione e non so neanche il perché.
those towards which I have
E
aversion
sono
and I don't even
avversioni
know why. It's
karmiche.
like a called the karmic
Uno dei miei
aversion.
maestri
One of
Gemak mi
my
ha detto
masters
una volta
told me
che quando
once
lui
that
viveva in
when he was
monastero
living in
in Tibet
monastery in Tibet,
c'era un
there
ragazzo
was
che ogni volta
one
che lo vedeva gli veniva
guy
male di
that
cuore.
every time
In
that
una
he
sera
saw
c'erano
him,
oltre
they would get
5.000
like an
monaci per dire a
incredible
vent'anni, non
anger.
sapeva neanche il suo nome.
You don't
Ma
even
ogni
know his
volta che
name,
lo
like there
vedeva
were
gli veniva male, aveva
5,000
un
monks
odio verso
there,
quello lì.
but every
E
time
lui
that he
mi ha
would
detto
see him,
che
he would get like
sentiva quella
really
cosa, ogni
some
volta che lo
hatred,
vedevo c'era quell'avversione
that
enorme,
huge
faceva
aversion,
finta niente, non
and he
mi ha mai
would
dato seguito a
pretend,
quell'avversione,
the
lo vedeva poco.
I mean, he wouldn't
Un
act on
giorno,
that
una ventina
aversion,
d'anni dopo, si sono
but
trovati insieme
and once, like
in
20
India, da
years
un'altra
later,
parte,
that
un'altra stazione,
they
e gli ha detto
found
che
each
tu
other
non
together,
c'eri
like in some other
quell'avversione. E lui mi ha
situation.
detto, guarda, sai che
And he
sta
saw that
succedendo?
there
Che per
isn't that
tanti anni,
aversion
ogni
anymore.
volta che ti
And
vedevo, non
so he talked
sapevo
to
il
him,
perché,
oh,
mi
look,
veniva
for many
un'avversione. E lui ha
years,
detto, sai che anche io ho la stessa
whenever
reazione
I
che hai.
saw you, then I
Questa
would
viene
get like
chiamata
this really big
avversione
aversion.
karmica.
And the other
Non
person
sai il
said,
perché
yeah,
e
you
come,
know,
fatto
also
sta
I
che
did,
questa
I
cosa
also
qui.
had that aversion,
Fatto sta che ci
And so
avversioni.
this is called karmic
Quindi, in
aversion.
poche
You don't even
parole,
know
noi
why.
mettiamo
In a few
quelli con
words,
cui
we put
conviviamo,
those
le
that we
persone che
live
abbiamo
with,
attrazione,
the
quelli a cui
people
siamo
towards which we
indifferenti,
have
quelli con cui
attraction,
conviviamo in
those
generale e
towards
quelli con
which we
cui
have
abbiamo avversione,
indifference, and those with
sia
which we have
giustificate che non
aversion,
giustificate.
whether it's justified or not.
Queste sono le persone
These
con cui
are
c'è da
the people
lavorare per
with
sviluppare
which we have to
amore,
work in
pazienza,
order to develop
compassione,
love,
equanimità,
compassion,
eccetera.
patience, equanimity,
È
and so
inutile
on.
dire io
It's
amo
pointless to
tutti i
say,
bambini che
ah,
sono
I
in
love all
guerra.
the children that are in
Tutto
wars.
l'amore e la
All
compassione
the
verso i
love and
bambini che
compassion
sono in guerra,
towards
senza togliere
those
assolutamente
children
nulla.
without taking away from that.
Quello che
But
succede
what happens
è che
is
se
that
io non riesco ad
if I
amare
don't, if I'm not able to
quelli che mi
love
stanno
those that are
intorno,
close to me,
quello è un
then
amore che è molto
that
idealizzato.
becomes like a very idealized love.
Adesso non è l'argomento del
Now, this
video,
is not
però è un amore
an
che
argument to be
si
opened now, but
basa
it's a
non
love that it's
sulla
based
identità,
on an
io devo essere una
identity.
persona buona per
I
amare
have to be a
tutti
good
e ci
person, I
metto
have to
dentro
love
le
everyone, and I
emozioni,
put
anche
some
la
conditions to
compassione,
that
eccetera.
compassion, to that love.
Invece quando
But
riesco ad
actually,
aprire
if I
e
manage
a
to
volere la
open up
felicità
and to
e voler
want the
portare
happiness and to
la
want
liberazione dalla sofferenza
the
in quelle 5
liberation of
categorie,
suffering to those five categories,
espandere
then
per
to
chiunque altro è
expand
molto più
that
facile.
to anyone else,
Ok?
then it's much
Quindi
easier.
se no succede io ti
Otherwise, it
amo
becomes
finché
like
stai
I love
soffrendo.
you until I like you,
Non funziona così.
and it doesn't really work.
Perciò quello che si fa, si
And
visualizzano
so,
le 5
what we do
categorie,
here is that we visualize the five
immaginiamo
categories,
loro.
we imagine them.
Prima dobbiamo fare un processo di
First, we
amore
need to
verso
do
noi
a
stessi,
process of
compassione
love
verso noi
towards
stessi.
ourselves and compassion towards
Quindi
ourselves. So we
immaginiamo davanti a noi
imagine
quello
in
che viene
front of
chiamato
us what is
l'oggetto di
called the
fede,
object of faith.
che può essere Buddha, può
That
essere il
could be
nostro guru,
Buddha,
può
could
essere
be
il
a
nostro
wrong
centro di
guru, could
luce,
be
può
like
essere
a
Gesù,
source
la
of
Madonna,
light,
quello
Jesus
che
or
per noi
Madonna. What
rappresenta
for
la
us
purezza,
represents the
l'amore, la
purity,
compassione, la
love,
saggezza,
compassion,
quello che viene
wisdom,
chiamato oggetto di
what is
fede.
called
Ok?
the object of faith.
Immagino che vengono
I
dei raggi
imagine
di
that some rays
luce,
of light
nectar,
come, a nectar,
verso di me
they come
e vanno a
towards me and
eliminare
they
le proprie
eliminate
negatività.
my own
Quindi prima
negativities. So,
sento che la mia
first,
rabbia,
I
la mia
feel that my
tristezza,
anger,
la
my
mia paura,
sadness,
le
my
mie
fear, my
negatività vengono
negativities
eliminate.
are
Immagino
eliminated.
quello
I
e
imagine
permetto a me
this.
stesso di
And I allow
immaginare che mi
myself
trovo
to
in uno
imagine
stato di
that I
pace.
am in a state of peace.
Ok? Una volta che
And
ho
once I've
fatto
done
questo,
this,
immagino che quei raggi di
I
luce
imagine
verso
that
giunti al mio
those
cuore
rays of
si
light that have
riflettono e dal mio
reached
cuore
my heart,
vanno a
they
togliere gli
reflect,
altri.
and from my heart they go to the
Non
heart
vado a
of the
fare
others.
prima quelli che mi
I
stanno
don't do
simpatici,
first those that I
poi dipende
like,
quanto
and
tempo ho
then
quelli che lì,
depends on
quelli
how
che mi
much
stanno
time I have,
antipatici,
those
dipende, mi sa che oggi è una
towards
volta che non
which
c'ho
I'm
tempo.
different, and those
No,
that I don't like, no, I
parlo a
think
tutti
today
in
no,
nello
because they
stesso
don't have
modo
time.
e nello stesso tempo.
No, it goes to everyone at the same time, in the same way. because
vogliamo essere
we
felici,
all want to
nessuno
be
vuole
happy,
soffrire,
no one
siamo
wants to
sulla stessa
suffer, we
barca,
are
nella
on the
stessa
same boat,
situazione,
same
quindi ho un
situation,
atto dove
and
non
so
vado a dare
it's an
più o
act
meno
where I don't
nello
give more
stesso
to
modo.
one and less to another, in the
Quando i
same
raggi
way
di
to
luce
everyone.
si
And when the
avvicinano
rays
ed
of light
entrano in contatto con l'altra
get in
persona,
contact with the other person,
in poche
in a
parole
few
vanno ad
words,
aiutare quella
they
persona
help that
gradualmente a
person
raggiungere
gradually
uno stato
to
di
reach
pace.
a state of peace.
Quindi quelli che sono
And
i suoi
so,
dolori, le sue
what
sofferenze, le sue
are the
paure,
pains,
eccetera,
the
eccetera, si
fears, the
sciolgono.
sufferings of that person
La
melt
persona
away?
raggiunge uno
The
stato di
person reaches a
gioia,
state
di
of joy,
pace,
of peace.
e quei raggi
And those
ritornano e si riassorbono
rays
in noi.
then come back and are reabsorbed in us.
Cosa stiamo lavorando
What
con
are
questo?
we working
In un
on
modo
with
non
this in a
razionale.
non-rational way?
I raggi vanno
The
nello stesso
rays
tempo a tutti,
go the
stiamo
same way to
sviluppando
everyone. We are
equanimità,
developing equanimity,
consapevolmente o meno.
whether we are aware of it or
I
not.
raggi vanno a
The
eliminare
rays
la
go
sofferenza, io
and
voglio,
eliminate the
io sto
suffering,
sviluppando
so I'm
compassione.
developing compassion.
Portano la felicità
They
sullo
bring
stato di
happiness,
dolore,
so I'm
e i
developing
raggi
love,
ritornano
and
e
the
io
rays
visualizzo di essere
come
che
back,
stanno
and I
bene, e
visualize the
quello vado a
being that are
generare
happy,
raggiungere la
and with
gioia
that
della
I
felicità.
work on the rejoicing
Quindi è
for the
una
happiness of the
visualizzazione
others.
che si fa anche
So
mentre
it's
si fa
one
il mantra,
visualization that it can also be done as you recite the mantra,
nella quale noi
where
andiamo a coltivare
we
queste qualità,
cultivate
andiamo a
these
creare
qualities. We
un'esperienza
create an
interna che
experience,
ci
an
aiuta a
inner
coltivare
experience
queste
that helps
qualità.
us to cultivate these
È
qualities.
diverso dal stare a
It's
dire io
different
credo
from
nell'amore, è
sitting there
importante
and
avere
saying,
l'amore, è
ah,
importante
it's
la
important to have
compassione, è
love, to
importante
have compassion,
l'equanimità. Posso
equanimity.
darmi tutte le ragioni del
I can
mondo,
give
che va
myself all the
bene,
reasons of the
ma
world,
quello
which
è
is fine,
diverso
but it's very
da quando io
different
mi permetto di
from
indurmi a
when
un'esperienza
I allow myself to
che
induce
va ad
myself to an
aiutarmi a
experience
vivere
that
quella
helps me
vita. Ok?
in that.
E per esempio
And for
ci sono
example,
tantissime
there
forme di
are many
visualizzazione in questo
forms of
senso.
visualizations that can
E
be
la
done in this.
visualizzazione ha questo
And
potere
visualization
veramente
has
di
really this
creare delle
power of
esperienze e
creating some
modellare la
experiences
nostra
and
mente,
modeling our
molto di
mind,
più che stare a
much
pensare
more
su quello.
than sitting there and
Per
thinking
questo
about
che
the thing.
una volta che
And
noi
so
abbiamo
for this,
capito,
it's
adesso ci
important that
tocca
once we have
meditare, adesso ci
understood, then
tocca
we have to
creare
meditate, we
esperienze,
need to create
ripetere.
some experiences and
La
repeat them.
pratica
The
dell'autoguarigione
practice of
è una
self-healing
pratica
is a
dove si va a
practice where
indurci a
we
un'esperienza
induce ourselves to
nella
an
quale fra
experience
altre
where,
cose quello che andiamo a
among other
fare è
things, what we do is
identificarci
to identify
nella
ourselves
versione idealizzata di
in
cui
the
vogliamo essere.
idealized version that we want to become.
Quindi io mi
So
immagino
I imagine
come Amoghasiddhi, quindi
myself as a
senza
Moghasiddhi,
gelosia e
so with
invidia,
no
in uno
jealousy,
stato di
envy, in a
in cui
state
posso rigioire
where I
senza
can
paura del
rejoice
potere di
with no fear, the
realizzazione.
power of
Io sono
realization.
Ratnasambhava,
So
mi
I am
immagino come
Ratnasambhava, I
Ratnasambhava,
imagine
quindi
myself
io ho
as
generosità,
Ratnasambhava, so I have
umiltà, io
generosity,
sono
humility,
queste
I
qualità.
am these
Immagino come
qualities. I
Akshobhya, io
imagine
sono
myself as
stabilità,
Akshobhya, so I am
amore,
stability, love,
pazienza, io sono
patience.
Amitabha,
I am
sono
Amitabha, I am
concentrazione,
concentration,
soddisfazione, io sono Buddha
satisfaction.
Vairochana,
I am Buddha
io sono
Vairochana. I
saggezza,
am wisdom,
coerenza,
coherence,
armonia.
harmony.
Più io mi identifico in questo e lo immagino, più vado a
The more I
familiarizzarmi
identify myself with this and imagine it, the more I familiarize
la
with these
nostra mente
qualities.
funziona
Our
sulla base
mind
della
works on the
ripetizione e della
basis of repetition,
familiarizzazione.
familiarization.
Non è che lo immagino una
It's
volta e
not that I
diventa
imagine
così,
it once and I become that, no.
però l'effetto di immaginare è
But the
molto più
fact of
potente di
imagining
quello di
it, it's much
unicamente capire.
stronger rather than just understanding.
Ok? Per questo è un processo importante quello di poter
So for
utilizzare
this,
questi
it's an
strumenti
important
di
process, the
visualizzazione.
one
È
of
ovvio, per fare
using
una
these tools of
visualizzazione è
visualization.
qualcosa che uno deve un
Of
attimino
course,
sedersi,
to do the visualization,
respirare,
one needs to
portare
sit
l'attenzione al momento
down,
presente e poi
breathe, bring the attention to
fare
the
quelle
present moment,
pratiche
and then go
che vengono chiamate
through a
di
path.
solito le sadhane o
And
sadhana.
these are usually called
O sadhana in
sadhanas.
sanscrito fa riferimento a
Sadhana in
qualcosa che
Sanskrit
ripeti
is
sempre.
about something that you repeat
Lo
every day.
sadhana è
Your
un'esercizio che
sadhana,
viene
sadhana,
fatto sempre
is something
e
that
poi
it's an exercise that you always
non
do
è
and you
ripetitivo.
repeat. It's not like the book.
Noi ogni tanto diamo il nome sadhana al
Sometimes we give
librettino.
the name
In
sadhana
realtà
to the
quello che
book.
abbiamo nel librettino
Actually, what we
piuttosto che
have in
nel
the
video
book
è
or
una
in the
mappa
video is a
di
map
quello che noi
of
dobbiamo
what
fare.
we should do.
Ok? Perciò in realtà uno dei passi importanti dopo aver
So
capito
actually one of the important
è
steps after
esercitarsi.
having understood is that we need to
Perciò un
sweat, we need to
braccio che
work, we need to
ripete
repeat
ancora,
again and again and
ancora,
again
per
in
gradualmente
order
effettuare
to
quel processo di
gradually
trasformazione. E in
actualize
questo
that process
processo
of
ci sono due
transformation.
cose
And in
fondamentali,
this process there are
che
two
era quello a cui
fundamental
volevo anche
things.
arrivare oggi.
That is also where I wanted to get to today.
nel processo di amare noi stessi
In the process of loving ourselves,
è fondamentale
it's
la
fundamental
sincerità con noi
sincerity with ourselves.
stessi. È veramente importante.
It's really important.
E nella sincerità con noi
And
stessi
in this
rientra la nostra
sincerity,
capacità di
also
saper
there is
giudicare
our
le nostre
capacity
proprie
of
azioni,
judging our actions, our thoughts, words,
giudicare la nostra
judging
vita.
our mind.
E in questo poter
And
giudicare
in
non
this
nella
judgment,
senso
not in a bad way, but to be able to discern
di dire guarda
and to
questo
say, ah,
funziona,
look, this
questo non
works, this
funziona,
doesn't work.
questo mi fa bene,
This
quello mi
is
fa
good,
male,
this is
questo fa
harmful,
bene a
this is good for
me
me, and that
come
is
per gli
not,
altri.
but it's not good
Poter
for
capire
others.
questo, poter
And to
discernere,
be able
avere
to
chiarezza sul nostro modo di vivere,
discern
sul
this
nostro
and to
modo
have
di agire
clarity on our own way of
fisicamente,
living
verbalmente
and
e
so of
mentalmente.
acting physically, verbally, and mentally
Questo richiede sincerità,
requires sincerity.
perché la tendenza qual è?
Because the
Sento
tendency
rabbia,
is, okay,
le
I
azioni
feel
che compio
anger,
tramite la
the
rabbia, io
actions
vado a
that I
trovare una
take
narrativa
through
per
anger,
giustificarle.
I find a narrative to justify them.
Se quelle azioni vengono fatte
Those
verso di me,
actions are done towards
secondo me non
me,
vanno bene.
then they're not fine.
Però
But
andiamo a trovare una narrativa
we
per
go and
giustificarle.
find a narrative to justify that.
Perciò quando abbiamo
And
una
so,
profonda
when we
sincerità,
have a deep sincerity,
che va anche aiutata
that also needs to be helped
tramite la ragione,
through
tramite le
reason,
cose che abbiamo
through
imparato,
things that we
eccetera,
learn and so
per
on,
poter avere un
in order to
discernimento chiaro.
have a
Ma
clear
alla base del
discernment.
discernimento
But
c'è
at the
sincerità.
basis of discernment, there is
La
trust,
nostra
the
capacità di
sincerity,
poter
our
guardarci, di vedere
capacity of
questa
looking
cosa
ourselves.
no? A me mi capita di trovarmi
To
in
me, it happens to
situazioni
find myself in situations that I don't like,
vedo che cosa
to see
succede
what
intorno a me
happens, what is happening around
e
me,
mi pongo
and
sempre
I
la
always
domanda:
ask myself
io
the
in che
question,
modo posso
me,
fare
in what
meglio?
way
Che
can I
cosa ho
do better?
fatto che
What have I
magari
done
potrei
that
fare
maybe I
diversamente?
could have done differently?
Dov'è il punto che io posso migliorare
Where
in
is
questa
the point
situazione?
where I can improve in this situation?
E non stare lì
And not
semplicemente a
to just
incolpare gli altri e a vittimizzarsi.
stay there and blame the others and
E
victimize
qua ci sono due
oneself.
azioni
And here there are
fondamentali che
two
Buddha
fundamental
ci ha
actions
detto
that
come due
Buddha
delle principali azioni che dovremmo ripetere
gave us
con
as like the two
costanza,
main
con
actions that we should
regolarità.
repeat with constancy.
La
And
prima è quella di
the first one
rivedere
is
cose che
to
abbiamo fatto che non
revisiting
sono andate
the
bene.
things that we have done and that didn't go
Le
well.
cose che abbiamo fatto, ripeto, riguardano la
I
nostra condotta
repeat,
fisica,
these things are about
verbale
our
e mentale.
physical, verbal, and mental
Pensieri, le
conduct. So,
emozioni,
thoughts,
le parole
emotions,
dette, le
words
azioni
that have
compiute,
been
le
said,
considerazioni con
actions
gli altri.
taken,
Quali
interactions
sono
with
quelle che
others.
non vanno bene?
What are those
Ce
that
n'è di
didn't,
fatto, no?
that are
Perché
not
diciamo qualche
fine?
cosa che era meglio non aver detto,
Okay, maybe we
parliamo in un
said
modo,
something
magari diciamo
that
una cosa che
was
secondo me è
better
troppo
to
sbagliato,
not having
che abbiamo un
said that.
sentimento di
Maybe we've done
avversione
something
piuttosto che di gelosia o
that
invidia,
was not
che
good. We have some
fisicamente
feeling of
andiamo a fare
aversion or
delle cose,
envy,
il
or
nostro modo di agire verso l'altro, dall'espressione fino all'azione fisica in sé, che non vanno bene. E non è un non vanno
and
bene
it's
perché
not
c'è
like
una
that these
regola
things are not
predefinita che
fine
non va
because like
bene.
there is a predefined rule that makes it so.
La
The
definizione di
definition
azioni
of
negative
negative
e
action
di azioni
and of
positive
positive action
sono: è
is
un'azione positiva,
a positive
è
action
l'azione che
is
una
that
volta
which
compiuta
once
porta a un
com-
risultato di benessere e felicità.
completed, then it brings a result of
Un'azione
happiness
negativa è
and
quell'azione che
well-being.
una
And a
volta
negative
compiuta
action
porta al
is
risultato
one
di
that
sofferenza
once
e
it has
malessere,
been done brings some
specialmente
bad
nei medio
feeling,
long term.
especially in medium long term.
Ok? Perciò quali sono i miei
So,
comportamenti
what
che
are
non
my
funzionano?
behaviors that I see that
Che
are
li
not
devo
working?
riconoscere.
I need to
Cosa
recognize
ho
them.
fatto oggi che non è
What
andato
have I done
bene?
today that didn't go well?
C'è stato qualcosa?
Has there been something?
Magari sì,
Maybe
magari
yes, maybe
no.
no.
In realtà
Actually,
più
the
ci alleniamo
more
in
we
questo,
train ourselves
più
with this, the
diventiamo
more we become
sottili, più riusciamo a
subtle, the more we
percepire
are
le
able to
sfumature.
perceive the shades.
No? Addirittura il grande maestro Atisha,
Also, even the great master Atisha,
che faccio così, che è rappresentato alla mia destra col cappello rosso,
which is represented here
nell'undicesimo secolo, uno dei più importanti
in the
maestri della
11th
storia del
century,
buddismo.
is one of the most important
Quando lui
masters in the
andava con
history
la
of
carovana
Buddhism.
dall'India
When he was
al
going with the
Tibet,
caravan
faceva fermare
from
ogni 2 per 3
Tibet
la
to
carovana
India, he would
per
make
ammettere apertamente i suoi
like
errori.
very often the caravan stop to
Ho
openly
fatto
admit his
questo, ho rotto
mistakes.
quel
Ah, I've
modo, ho
done this,
fatto questo
I've broken
pensiero che
that
non
vow,
andava. A
I
un certo
had
punto
that
si è
thought
inoltrato e ha
which
detto:
was not
maestro,
nice. And one at a certain point, the disciples came to him was like,
dobbiamo
Master,
ancora arrivare.
the respect, we also need to arrive. We can't stop continuously. And also the things that you come to confess us with, to openly admit, we don't even understand why they are not fine. If you will know our things, that's absolutely nothing. Okay, and then Atisha replied, you don't need to know them, but I need to say them. Because a negative behavior, even when it's very small, when it's hidden, the tendency is that it grows. When it's seen, recognized, and openly admitted with oneself, first of all, and also with no fear towards the other. But you openly admit that that behavior is not fine. That is the beginning to stop it. And so, sometimes when we talk about this argument, we have the confusion of the feeling of guilt. It's not to say, how mean I was that I've done this and that, and so I need to suffer. That is a very bad shortcut, because actually it's like, okay, I played the bell and I shouldn't have done it. I hurt myself, then I can play it again. I know people that have terrible behaviors, and then they say, I must suffer because I've done that. Then they do beautiful things on the other side to balance. I compensated enough, I can repeat that behavior. It's a very painful dynamic. The point here is not the concept of feeling guilty for something or for how one has behaved. It's not about a judgment on the person. I am good or I am bad. Look how bad I was because I've done this or that. We shouldn't get in the judgment of our own person, but of our actions. But our tendency, what is it? I've done something good. How good I am. I am not good. I've done something good. That thing is good. It's not me who is good. Because otherwise, then also I do something that it's not good, then I'm not good anymore. And here we fall back in the example which I've made many times. That is also the way how I explain these kind of things many times. Like, okay, when you ask what makes it so that a person is a liar, a person that says lies. How many lies do you need to say? Many, like one every sentence. Maybe if you need just one lie to be a liar, then we're all liars. On the other hand, if you to be a person that is sincere, how many times do you have to be sincere to be a sincere person? If one says always, then it means that there is no sincere person. What I believe is that there are no liars and no people that are sincere. There are people that sometimes are sincere and sometimes tell lies. There are those who tell more lies or less lies. I know like situations that was very extreme, like there was a person that was not able to complete a sentence without putting there three lies. And so what I have to understand is that I'm not one thing or another. I am a whole of many feelings, many actions, many conducts, and my role, my task is to gradually change. Like for example, what color is this painting? Is yellow, green, blue? No, it has many colors. I can't say that the painting has one color, and so I need to allow myself to see all the colors that are there. And in the same way, we need to judge our behaviors and say, okay, I've done this thing that is not fine, I should try to not repeat that way of acting. But it's not that I am good or I am bad, because the feeling of guilt is strongly connected with judging the person and not the behavior. So it's not that I should suffer because I've done something that it doesn't work. I must help myself to change that behavior and not repeat it. And the first thing that needs to be done to not repeat a behavior is to openly admit that that behavior is not fine, and to say oneself, yes, that sucks, I shouldn't repeat it. I also I shouldn't repeat it is the next step, but also I should start with okay, that is not good to recognize it. I've talked in an aggressive way, I looked at the other person in a way that is not nice, I judged the person I followed an action with an inner attitude of racism. I don't know, we can have 1,000 things. But we recognize, okay, I've lied, I didn't have the courage of being sincere, there are many things. And so in front of these things, when I recognize something, I realize, okay, I've had a behavior that are the best of my capacity, but that it doesn't work, it wasn't fine. So the first step is to openly admit the mistake. And here there is an attitude that for me personally is very important. That is our capacity of openly admitting our mistakes in a way that is with dignity, without having to hide them. But this is also in the practical things. We do something, it's not fine, something doesn't go fine, who has done it? I have done it, okay. I'm sorry, how can I fix it? Not to hide things and pretend that it didn't happen, or to victimize oneself and blame someone else. Like you say, the only ones that don't make any mistakes are those that don't do anything. And also we make more mistakes with those that we interact the most. But once I've done a mistake, I've made a mistake, then I should openly admit it and put myself in the position of kind of also find a remedy. But if I don't admit it, all that process will not happen, and what will happen is that that conduct will become stronger, more and more, and I will begin also to create some narratives, as we talked about before, to justify that. For example, when I would study in India, I didn't like to memorize. It was one of the important parts of studies, to memorize words, word by words, of the text. I was able to do that, but I didn't like it. And so I was finding all the excuses. But we in the West are not used to studying like this. Look, it's not our point of strength. But you know, I'm good at debate. But I read things. But you know, like memorizing, you don't really need it so much. The important thing is to know the meaning. One shouldn't repeat like a parrot. The truth is that I was lazy. Because to memorize things, actually, it has a huge importance. It's very beautiful also. It's a bit like, I don't know, in Italy, in Brazil, when you give the exam to be admitted at the university, there are difficult exams. And there are also some songs that are made with key points to be memorized, so that one, if you say that word that reconnects you with the whole meaning and so on. And so, for example, there are some root texts that I've studied. Usually it takes like 9 years to study this text, and the first year is the first 4 verses. But once you memorize the whole text, and then you study the meaning, that opens a lot. You are able, with those few words, to maintain the memory of the whole content. You're able to trace back. And so to memorize is something beautiful and very useful. Me, during those years, I wasted a lot of time, because I would say, I would find excuses, no, because this, because that, but the truth is that I was lazy, I didn't like it. The day that I really sat down and memorized, I memorized in 1 month and a half what I didn't do in 3 years, so it's not that I wasn't able, I didn't feel like it. But instead of openly admitting it and doing something to feel like wanting to do that, I would justify myself. The day that I openly admit it and I tell myself to do it, then I was able to do it. So when we have a conduct that is not fine and we don't openly admit it, that our tendency is that our conduct increases and that we create some narratives to justify it. And sometimes this can also last the whole life. And we victimize ourselves within those narratives, and then at a certain point it becomes a habit, and we don't even realize that we have that behavior. For me, one of the examples of a case of success of which I can openly talk about is my father. Since when I was a kid, he was a person that was reacting aggressively. I also remember once that we were in India, we were together. One day he was talking like that, and I told him, "Why are you angry? Oh, there is nothing." "I'm not angry." "Yeah, if you're not angry, then you talk like that." "No, I'm not talking like that." "Yes, you are." Because when it becomes a habit, is when one acts and doesn't even realize that you lie, you don't even realize that you're lying. You talk in a certain way, you don't even realize. You don't respect the limits of the other and you don't even realize that. This is when it has become a habit. And when we have a behavior that we omit from ourselves, we don't want to admit it. The tendency is to create some narratives to justify it, to sustain it, to repeat it until it becomes a habit. And then at a certain point it's stronger than us, stronger than our will. There is the self-sabotage and many other things that we can do to ourselves. And so for this, things need to be taken when they're still small. You need to... So in our daily life, as we recognize that we have said like words that weren't fine, or in a way that was aggressive, thoughts that are not fine, of course you start from the bigger ones. And also from the more gross level, so from the physical actions, then to the speech, and then to mind. The more we're able to observe and to recognize when there are behaviors that are not fine, the more we're able to direct ourselves and bit by bit to model, to shape the mind. And so to openly admit the mistakes without getting into the dynamic of punishing oneself. And here there is the main prayer, the main mantra of purification, which is the mantra of 100 syllables. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Parijaritu Me Bhava Sudokai Me Bhava Supokai Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayasa Sarva Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tatagata Vajramaya Vajrabhava Maha Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe. If we take this mantra, that is the main mantra of purification. Mantra of purification, if we go and look at the meaning, is not how bad I am, I've done some bad things, I should suffer for that, what I've done, I am bad, I was wrong. It's not that. The mantra says, my nature is a pure nature. It talks about recognizing one's own nature, recognizing one's own qualities. It's a profound act towards oneself. Because at the basis of recognizing a non-virtuous action, there is recognizing my capacity of not repeating it. So it's not an act of punishing oneself, but it's an act of helping to sustain, and the help and sustainment are based on the will of being helped and on the faith, on the capacity of changing. So what is my pure nature? That I'm empty of intrinsic existence, that I am interdependent. Now we don't open this door, but it means that I recognize my nature. And why have I done those stupid things? Because I accumulated ignorance, anger, aversion, whatever it is. I'm able to see that. And so I have the capacity of changing it and being different. And it's not like, okay, the practices of purification are not about saying how bad I am. It's about revisiting one's own actions, to look at the future with more hope, and to put oneself at peace with the past. That is fundamental. Because when we take some actions that we know that are not fine, there is also another particular dynamic. I try to be brief. I do something physically, verbally, have some thoughts, do some words that are not fine. I say some words. I know that that shouldn't be done, but I can't openly admit to myself and to say, I can do differently. I have trust in myself that I can change. And so I end up getting into a dynamic where not only I justify myself, but I also victimize myself inside the same action. I am victim of my parents, I'm victim of society, I'm victim of this and that. That's why I'm like this. I wouldn't like to be like this, but I can't be different. No, I can't be different. And if I am like this, it's no one's fault. It's a fault of an infinite number of things. It's the infinite complexity of life. But this doesn't justify the fact that I should continue to be like this. And so, for this, I take act. I openly admit that mistake. I allow myself to welcome myself in that moment, and I take the commitment to not repeat that. I look at the future, I put myself at peace with the past and the present, and I look at the future with hope. I want to act differently. I believe that I can do it, one step after the other, not all together, but gradually I can do it. And the commitment towards the future is fundamental. Then you do something that is positive, that generates a positive energy of virtuous, that is dedicated towards it, for this change, dedicated to pacifying the past and to looking at the future in a different way. And here there are the practices with the visualization, the recitation of the mantra with Vajrasattva. There are many things that one can do, but at the basis there is generating an opposite attitude, admitting openly that the action was wrong and committing to not repeat the action again in the future and to do something positive in opposition to that action. Here there are many things that we could explain about this, but it's not the moment now, because otherwise we open another whole argument. One of these next Sundays, there will be Introduction to Buddhism in Abhagnana. It will be on karma, so we'll be able to explain all these things with more time. And the action to be taken right after that is to rejoice. So first I look, okay, what have I done that was not nice? Okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't repeat it. I imagine myself in a different future, not doing that thing anymore, and I commit myself in that direction. And in many cases also take some concrete actions. For example, if I recognize that it's not good for me to eat chocolate, and I realize that I've eaten chocolate that is not then I don't get closer to the factory of chocolate. Or maybe I've drank alcohol and it was not good. I commit to not go out with those friends, because when I'm in that context, I can't help myself. It's a bit like in the tradition of Theravada Buddhism, like you have it in Thailand or Sri Lanka. There are some monks that maintain vows in a very rigid way. For example, you also have the vow of not touching women. I've seen many times traveling in Thailandia that kind of were like, but women are not like impure, it's not like you can't touch women, what bad is that? Actually, in that context, you don't see like woman as impure. It's not about woman about being impure. It's not like the problem with the woman. The problem is with the man that is not able to contain the desire, that sets himself some limits to say, okay, I don't go to touch with the finger because the finger brings to the hand and then the hand to the arm and so on. And so I keep a distance of security. And it's clear that if I know that you have set a distance, then I also respect that. And so I see that, okay, there is a behavior that is not nice, and I commit myself to not repeat it. I know that in some situations I have a hard time not taking that action, then I restrain myself from those contacts. I know that I have an addiction with phone, then I will try to use it less, to put it aside, so that then it's a context when it's not there. We should also protect ourselves in front of this. So I set myself some rules, I give myself some tools to help myself in that process. And for this, the vow, the commitment, is also defined in Tibetan semsu, not Samsung. Sem-sun. Sem means mind, sun means protection, protection of mind. The vow is a commitment that I take to protect myself from stupid things that otherwise probably I will do. I know that that thing is not fine, I commit to not do it. I know that something is good, I take the commitment to do it. That is the next step. And so I invite to start from the more gross things and then to go more and more on the subtle levels. There are many types of vows that one can take, but at the basis, one needs the awareness of observing oneself, recognizing what is not good, to give oneself a direction, to set some limits. That eventually is the dialogue between what I feel and what I think. The next fundamental part that seems easier but actually it's not, it's the one of rejoicing, that in other words is to celebrate. Because from what I've understood, the word, the equivalent for rejoicing doesn't exist in Italian. This also already says a lot. It's like the word privacy.
Privacità? Come si direbbe in italiano privacy? Riservatezza. Perché quando mi hanno detto non esiste la parola privacy in italiano.
When they've told me that there is no word privacy in Italian, I said, okay, we have understood many things. Depends on what context, but what happens is that when a word is missing in a culture, it means that also the concept is missing. So the word rejoice, to rejoice, doesn't exist in Italian. I can feel joy, but that's different. The concept of rejoicing is the fact that I see a virtuous action, a positive, something good, something joyous in the other, and I rejoice of that, which is still feeling joy, but it's like a feeling joy through an action that has been taken by oneself or another that has already happened. The word that gets the closest to that is to celebrate. I must say, how beautiful, and to generate joy. Wow, you maintained your patience yesterday in that situation where normally you can't. Wow, you've done that thing that was positive and you sat there to meditate for a long time. Wow, I'm happy for you. You got that thing and you were happy, you had a healthy relationship with someone. Wow, I'm really happy for you. I've done something good myself. Great. And so the process of rejoicing, or we can say to celebrate something positive, is very, very important. Also because when we celebrate what is good and positive that has been there, that helps us to set some long-term memory of what happened. Otherwise, situations pass, and the tendency is that in the memory remain the bad things. For it is in situations where like two people were very good together for a long time, then there was a moment of conflict, and it seems like there was never any good moment. Because our tendency is to generalize the whole through the last part. So, for example, I go to eat in a restaurant. I ate very well. How beautiful! I go maybe 50 times. I always eat well. I go like the 51 times, and I don't eat well. Then it becomes like, no, the restaurant is really bad. No, at least let's give some other possibility. Like maybe that time there could have been, like 1,000 reasons for that. But if I remember also of the times that I ate well, that I also have that memory that helps me to not generalize everything on a negative way. So when we get to the end of the day, the end of the week, we should look back at the positive things, both on our own behavior and also about the behavior of the others, and to celebrate them. To celebrate, we can do it in 1,000 ways. We can verbalize, we can, for example, take a little party, so to speak, do something pleasant in order to say, wow, how beautiful that there was this, and so to allow oneself to rejoice of the positive things, both that we did and also that the others did. And it's one of the things that that is really important. So I should have the maturity to see what didn't go well and to say, okay, I shouldn't repeat it, and to also see what went well and to say, okay, wow, let's maintain it, let's do it even better. And so I imagine myself in the future with that. I propose myself to do it more, to repeat that action, because it's something good. Wow, look, I meditated 3 times this week and I felt good. How great, I want to repeat it. Rather than I was gentle, I was able to maintain patience where usually I couldn't. I saw the thing where I knew that I had a particular desire of something that is harmful, and actually I was able to be in front of that and not to be dragged away from that. How beautiful, I must repeat it. To be able to see one's own qualities, at whatever level they are, like verbal, physical, mental, and to formalize this. And so here there is a physical, material moment where also some time is dedicated, like some mental time, but also temporal and physical, to do this, to revisit the things that didn't go well, and then after that to revisit those that actually went well. Why don't you do the other way around? First you do the part of rejoicing and then the part of openly admitting mistakes, because our tendency is to generalize the last, and it's much better to remain with that feeling. Wow, how beautiful. Because our tendency is just to see the things that are not fine. But actually, we should also do the part of celebrating, rejoicing, everything that is positive. And these two parts together give a very mature conduct. That is that of putting on the same level the aspects that are not fine and those that are fine, and gradually decreasing one and cultivating the other, and not generalizing one with the other. Because this is extremely useful in the relationship with other people, with a job, with a house, with everything. Because yes, you have that behavior that is not fine, but you have that other aspect that is very beautiful. How can I try to help to make it so that behavior that I don't like disappears and to cultivate the others, but we shouldn't generalize one with the other. And the same also when we see that there are many things that we can't help ourselves to live well, even if there are some aspects that we like, then it means that it's a moment to take some distance from a place, a person, a situation. And that doesn't mean to throw everything away. No, there are those aspects that are nice, but I can't manage to feel good here because there are those other aspects that I can't live well. And so, in our daily life, the more we are able to take these two actions, to openly admit our mistakes, so to pacify the past, to put ourselves at peace with the past and with our future, to project ourselves in the future, avoiding those actions, and to rejoice of the positive things that have been there, and so to create a positive image of the past and also of the future. And with this, the part of the reason sets some rules, some limits, to also help us direction more our feelings, to try to increase those that are good and to decrease those that are harmful. So these two aspects must work together. I repeat, it's not an aspect of feeling guilty or to have to punish oneself. This is, I think, a quite wrong concept, because the point is not to have to punish oneself, the point is to change conduct or to avoid certain conducts. And this is also about ourselves. And unfortunately, these are aspects of our culture that we have inside and we don't even realize. I heard a while ago of a girl that, in the best of her intentions, she was like 3 years old, not like. She goes to someone else that is living a difficult time and she says, "Look, I'm really sorry that that person hurt you. You should go to that person and hit that person." Because that's what they taught her. That's what she heard. But we very often get into the dynamic that when someone acts towards me in a wrong way, then I somehow want that person to suffer, that there is like a punishment. That is pointless, other than just making the things worse. But the point is that, okay, you have a behavior that is unhealthy, like violent or aggressive and so on. I take distance, I set some limits, this thing is not fine. If I can help you to change your conduct, then fine. Otherwise, I take distance and I protect myself and also protect yourself from your behavior. And in some cases, fortunately, we live in a context where there is law, where there are some limits. To me, it has already happened, like someone that, in the context of the center, creates some problems. Well, I told him, like, fortunately, we live in a country where there are rights and duties, and until one respects the duties and recognizes what are his rights, there is like some law that helps us with this, and we go on together like this. When this doesn't exist, it's much more complicated. So in a few words, the more we're able to give ourselves a direction, and so that that direction happens in our daily actions, the more we are gradually able to change ourselves in this direction. One of the fundamental tools, there are the mantras, there are the visualizations, and another fundamental tool that is there is called the vows, the commitments, the morality. That is when we set some guidelines to help ourselves. Okay, you do like that to cultivate like that, you do like that to avoid that other thing. And the reason for which we need this is that otherwise our desires, aversions, jealousies, envy can win over us, and we end up doing things that are harmful for us and the others. Clear. On the other hand, the more we're able to cultivate something that is good, like a positive conduct, the more also that helps us to develop our qualities. And there is one fundamental difference here, without getting too long on this. There is one difference between not lying, because I don't feel like lying, and not lying with the active action of the commitment of not lying. When I have the commitment of not lying, is an active thing. It's not that I'm not lying because there is no occasion for that. And so, also, for example, not killing. Usually there aren't the conditions for which I should kill, but when I have the commitment of not killing, then it becomes an action, like a proposition. And in the commitment of not killing, that means the value of life. The commitment of not lying, that is the value for the truth. And this becomes a positive action. And so, also for this, the importance of maintaining commitments with healthy, sane values, because as we can see, it seems like nothing, and then when you don't see it, you lose that thing. But actually, you should maintain certain values, and for this you need commitment. So this is not about morality intended as rules that are imposed, but like guidelines that we learn to receive, like for example what we said before, do not kill, steal, have sexual misconduct, and take substances that take away the clarity of mind, at least to not get drunk, and to cross the limit of one's own control. If we would all respect these 5 basic rules, wouldn't society be a bit better? It wouldn't solve everything, but already corruption couldn't be there anymore because you couldn't steal. We could be able to trust each other more because there is no lying. It would be a totally different society if we would all be able to respect these 5 rules. So we should start with ourselves at least. And this is something that has a really important effect. It's one of the most powerful tools of transformation that we have. That is about our daily conduct. Then I repeat, there are the mantras, the visualization, there is the part of prayer, there is the part of breathing, there is the sacred art, there are many things that we can use. But one of the important things is this, and inside this, to help this, there is the revisiting what didn't go well and the rejoicing of what went well, and like this we give ourselves more and more clarity in our direction. One last hint about this can be applied to many different contexts: work context, relational, physical, the relationship with the material. It's the same thing. What is fine, I cultivate it. What is harmful, I try to not repeat it. And like this, bit by bit, I learn and I improve myself. The important thing here, and here this is one last thing, but it's an important point, is that morality is our capacity of maintaining the commitments that we take. And this is something in which we should train ourselves. So, if I take the commitment every day for 15 days, when I wake up in the morning, I will do 3 jumps and say Babi Babu. Doesn't make any sense. But if I don't do it, what happens is that I will have less trust in myself and in the commitment of. But if I, every day that I wake up, take these 3 jumps and say Babi Babu, I will have more self-confidence, and also self-confidence in my capacity of maintaining my commitments. So the importance here is not really what I do, but my capacity of trusting myself and maintaining these commitments.
Facciamo le dediche.
Now let's make our dedications.
Jetsun lame kutse rapten chi namkara chinle chokchur gepa dan losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsela taktu ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama dan dralme cheke pela longche chi sadan lamge yente rabzone dorje change kopa nyurtob Sho nimo dele tsendele nime kunyan dele ninsen taktu delekpe kuncho sumki chingi lob kuncho sumki ngodrubutsol kuncho sumki trashishon all'alba o al tramonto
At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and to sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Thank you, everyone.